What is up, ladies and gentlemen, fellow nerds? It is your friend Connor Doe here, Always Nerdy TV. Thank you, new subscribers. Listing them right over here. Couldn't do it without you guys. Subscribe, I'll shout you out. Thank you guys. Nerdy TV, giving an ominous inside look into the characters that we know nothing about. Marvel's Inhumans. Let's see what we got here.
Sooner or later, the humans are going to find us up here.
You should have known this day was coming.
The Inhumans first appear in Fantastic Four, surprisingly, and it was a long time ago. Take us back to December of 1965, actually. Issue number 45 of Fantastic Four. I cannot believe how far these guys go back. Can you? Before we start talking about the Inhuman royal family, let's talk about where they came from, because I think that's truly important to the actual backstory of these characters. Let's get into it.
Earth now. We've been hiding here too long. Let's go to our rightful home. If we were on Earth, we would have a glorious planet to live on, thrive on.
This actually dates all the way back millions of years ago in the Kree vs. Skrull War that was going on between two alien races. Now this actually ties into later Miss Marvel and more Marvel Cinematic Universe characters, but we'll talk about the Inhumans specifically. One of the many cool things about the Inhumans is that their homeland, Attilan, was actually referenced in the first Avenger Captain America series way back in the day, 1945 I believe. And so Attilan has actually been transported to multiple different locations, one of which was even on the moon here. The two were at war, so the Kree noticed there was a group of potentially intelligent species on this planet Earth called Homo sapiens. So the Kree thought that it would be intelligent to go and actually genetically mutate these Homo sapiens into potentially weapons of mass destruction that they could use against the Skrull. The Kree inevitably abandoned their genetic mutation experiments, and the Inhumans are left to fend for themselves. And fend for themselves they do, very successfully, creating their own society that sustains itself well before any human society sustains itself ever. Since they were secluded for millions of years, the Inhumans never made contact with human beings until Fantastic Four issue number 45 in December of 1965. First contact with humans ever. Interesting.
If we were on Earth, we would have a glorious planet to live on, thrive on.
You're talking about betraying your brother. You're talking about treason.
You're blind to his intentions. Right or wrong, he's dangerous.
What we're talking about is freedom. Freedom for all Inhumans. Are you going to use your voice to kill your only brother? Stop it!
Now, the Inhumans would actually gain their powers from what is called Terrigen Mist. Now, their powers are regulated by the Genetic Council. It sounds confusing, but it actually pays off in the end with Black Bolt. The Genetic Council actually determines who does what job based on their gift that they're given on the Terrigen Mist. So some are considered slave laborers because that's what their gift gave them, but they're given an equal amount of pay as everybody else, which is fair, some would say. Most of the Inhuman story revolves around the royal family, so that's what we're going to talk about mostly. A lot of the comic book runs do have to deal with the societal class conflict that exists between the Inhuman royal family and the worker class, and it makes for a great story. So who better to start with than the king of the Inhumans, Black Bolt himself. You may be more familiar with him than any other character, and he's my favorite person, to be honest, of all the Inhumans. Let's talk about his powers. When we talk about Black Bolt, we talk about his voice, because that's his power. He can't actually talk because even if he whispers, it causes tremors and earthquakes. It's so destructive. The most exciting thing about Black Bolt, ironically, is that he can't talk. His voice is so powerful, but that makes his character even more powerful because he's so wise. All he does is think. That's all he can do. The antagonist of the Inhumans is typically Maximus the Mad, coincidentally Black Bolt's brother. Now the thing about Maximus the Mad is that he is so smart and he's so witty but the origin story of Black Bolt becoming king made Maximus the Mad go crazy. And we'll talk about that right here. So the parents of Black Bolt and Maximus the Mad were lead genetic council members. And so it was unfortunate when their parents died. Now, how did they die? Well, Black Bolt was tricked by Maximus the Mad to use his voice to shoot down a ship that crashed into the genetics council, killing both their parents. It's very sad.
Been looking for you.
What are we?
What if I told you there's a place where people have powers like us? The city of Adelan. And I can take you there.
So after Maximus the Mad was locked away and Black Bolt retained the kingdom, he married his cousin, who is known as Medusa, aka Medusalith is her full name, but Medusa, who has psionic abilities to control her hair. So that plays actually an important storyline role a lot of the times, her ability to control her hair. Fortunate for Black Bolt in many of his schemes, Maximus the Mad has fallen in love with his wife Medusa and also their cousin. Strange, right? We'll talk a little bit more about Medusa here. As we mentioned, Black Bolt not being able to talk, Medusa plays an important role as the interpreter of Black Bolt. Being married to him, it's very easy for her to read body language, and there's actually multiple storylines of her communicating with Black Bolt via body language and a psychic ability almost. Now, you can't talk about Medusa without talking about the lovable character, the bulldog Lockjaw. Now, talk about Deus Ex Machina. Now, this guy comes and he teleports, so he saves the Inhumans at the most opportune time. He's beautiful. I love the dog. He's a great character. Lockjaw packs a powerful bite, and even in one issue, he bites the Thing, and the Thing can't rip his jaw off. He's got super canine strength, just like the Inhumans have superhuman ability. You could say he's the Inhuman's best friend. Yeah, I'll see myself out. We've got Gorgon, who's a cousin of Black Bolt. He's a very interesting character because he speaks his mind, but Black Bolt can't tell him to calm down, even though he's very arrogant sometimes. He's got bull-like legs and he's very strong, so he's very stubborn also. Also in the Inhuman royal family includes Triton, who's like the fish-like character. If you've seen Hellboy, he looks just like the fish character from Hellboy. Put a side-by-side up here. The thing about Triton is that he can go to depths of any sea level. So he can see in the dark, he can talk to Namor, and he works with Namor a lot. That's his role, basically, in the story. One of my favorite Inhuman characters is actually Karnak. Now, he's never been exposed to the Terrigen Mist, so everything about him is all natural. He reminds me of Batman, because his shtick is he's very wise. So he can actually find a weakness in anything. I mean anything. Now, because he hasn't been exposed to any Terrigen Mist, he doesn't have any powers, but he is super trained in the military of the Inhumans, and like I said, he can expose weaknesses for other people to exploit. So that's why I think he's in the Inhuman royal family. Last member I wanted to talk about is the one that's most known probably, but is least affiliated with the Inhuman royal family, and that is Crystal. Let's talk about her. She inevitably gets out of the incestual family marriage and gets with Quicksilver, and that's how actually the whole universe is tied together, was in the 1965 version of Fantastic Four, where she goes to try to find her sister Medusa, and she runs into them. It's very cool. The coolest part about Crystal is that she was the first ever character to identify as an Inhuman and expose the Fantastic Four to the Inhuman race. For millions of years, they hadn't exposed themselves to the humans, so that was cool.
Sooner or later, the humans are going to find us.
Got no way to prove it, so maybe I'm lying.
Their first course of action will be to try to destroy us.
Run!
I'm only human after all.
We need to go to Earth now. We need to strike first.
It would only lead to war.
Are you speaking for yourself or for our king?
All this being said, the characters in the Inhuman universe are very good, so I definitely recommend checking out their comic books. Maximus the Mad does great things in manipulating other Inhumans, and he makes for a great villain. So if you like great villains, check out the Inhumans, because they deal with them all. They deal with all the villains. It's very good. We learned after some research that the Inhumans from the TV series are actually a part of the cinematic universe. So if we do get a movie inevitably, eventually, then they will be the same characters, it sounds like. Interesting. So if we gotta get a backstory for them, we have to watch the TV show. Okay. The great thing about the Inhuman comic book universe is that their tones are very dark, but they're also very relatable. I mean, who can't relate to a guy that has to bite his tongue because of the effects of the ripples it would cause amongst his surroundings? Another great thing about the comic book universe for the Inhumans is that their stories revolve around the entire Marvel universe, and what they do affects all of the other characters, which is great. I love that. I want to thank you guys for checking out the channel and the video. My name's Connor with Always Nerdy TV. Again, here's a list of subscribers. Thanks again, and from one nerd to another, have a good goddamn day.